Why is it important to prepare Christian people to pass the Christian message? Why is it important to prepare for it? Why can't we do it on our own?
Well, we find that even though we believe we have a very good message, most people are not listening. And rather than thinking that it's their fault, that they're not interested or they reject us, what we thought was, let's find out why they're not listening. And we found out that it was because they had lots of ideas and prejudices about us. Some were false, some were true. And those were stopping them from listening to our message. So let's find out exactly what they're thinking so we can get over the prejudices they might have and get our message across.
What are the problems in the communication of religious people?
So one thing we realized was that we're often criticized, and many people think that for us our ideas and doctrines are more important than people, because in abortion we are perceived to be more interested in our doctrine on life than on the suffering of young girls who may have been raped or are victims, or in euthanasia we are perceived to be more interested in life than in the suffering of people in hospital. And we then realized that there's always a positive value behind the criticisms they make of us. The value of compassion, of love, of acceptance, of dignity, and that if we find out what the common value is, what the positive value behind the criticism is, the value we hold in common, and we start from there, we don't need to see our communication as a fight, because in a fight we're not listening to each other, we're just talking past each other. So in order to communicate properly, we felt we had to understand what is the thing we hold in common. What is the value of the victim, the value of life, the value of truth, the value of dignity, of love, whatever, and go there and start our arguments from there. Have a very clear message. It's important that we Christians should have a clear message, that we don't apologize for our messages, but also that we don't see those messages as a fight with other people, as a sort of clash that we will never agree. Because then we will not be interested in communicating, just in imposing things, which is not right. So if we want to communicate, realize that we all want really good things, we all want the same ultimately, and make our arguments very clearly from the starting point of the common value.
Do you prepare only media people in your work, or do you have experience with people who don't belong to any media, who don't work for media, but they face difficulties at work or in their home environment? How do they stand up for their values?
Well, we normally prepare ordinary people for media, but not media people who work in the media. So just ordinary Christians, ordinary Catholics, men and women with other jobs, and to speak. And the skills we teach can be used in talking to media, but also in talking in ordinary situations at work, with your family. Most people would like to really improve in how to communicate with their spouse, their children, in the values they hold, without fighting in any way, so that they would like to be able to do that. So we teach that.
Do you have an example for the results of the work you do?
Well, we prepare people to speak in media, in normal situations, also to give talks in parishes and schools. And the method is the same. Always find the common value and explain the thing from the common value. Explain your ideas in a clear way, showing that we all want the same thing and we can achieve it in that way. And I remember that somebody was giving a talk in a parish about assisted suicide from the point of view of the reframing. The reframing is, what's the frame? The frame is that people think that we care more about our doctrine on this, the life is sacred, than in the suffering of the person who is about to die. And the common value is the compassion for the person who is suffering and relief of his suffering and so on. And that our messages are what people want is not to be killed, but to be loved and to be appreciated and to be their suffering to be relieved, and for them to have a meaningful life. It's a question of meaning. If they suffer so much, they are left by their friends. They have no meaning. Anyway, he was explaining this in a talk in a parish, and there were about 30 people or something. And about a week later, he got a phone call from one of the people who had attended and said, "You won't believe what happened to me. I was in the gym, and some other person came to the gym, and we were saying, and he said, look, I went to the doctor, and he said I have terminal cancer, so I'm thinking of going to Switzerland to end my life." And then he had been very surprised. It was a woman. She had been very surprised. What shall I say now? Because this is a very hard thing. Somebody tells me that they want to commit suicide. And I remembered the talk, and I said, well, actually, you don't really want to die. What you want is you want to have meaning in your life, and you want to be loved. And they had this long conversation, and the other person was very, very interested. And in the end, he didn't go to Switzerland, right? But it's funny because you don't know when this is going to happen to you, that somebody is going to come to you and tell you, and if you say, oh, that's wrong, you shouldn't do that, then this does not communicate anything. You have to understand the good thing they want, and what they're saying this for a good reason. And if we find this common value, we can speak, not just in media, not just in talks, but actually one-to-one, in the ordinary circumstances of life. So for me, that story, when I heard it, this happened a year ago, when I heard it, I thought, this is exactly the kind of fruit that our communication can give.
Thank you very much.
Okay.